Hello, everybody. And as always, welcome once again to another Saturday evening of Embracing Boundlessness. And tonight's going to be in line with what's been common for the past few weeks. DeSatu and I are going to share a little information. And if it's been a while since you joined us, you'll notice that the lead in to DeSatu is a little different than what it once was, a little more seamless, not necessarily taking a moment out to make that transition, but just to allow that transition to occur of its own a little bit more naturally. And again, I know I've mentioned this a couple times, but and the idea for that is um, along the lines of the reminder that really everybody who watches has that same connection going on. And to do things that help make it not so distant to everybody. And so that's the reason why they kind of whispered that in my ear back a little while ago to kind of change the way that we do the lead in. Anyway, so it looks like this might be the gang. So we'll get started. For many centuries, and actually we'll begin this in a different way than that, and we'll get back to that. All of your physical dimensions have, and various individuals, yourselves included, will utilize various names for the you that has this experience now. We are partial to focused personality, but there are many that speak about your physical experience in this physical dimension. But of course, you are much more than that. You are all of that larger you. And there are various ways to describe that as well. Our preference is essence. Some prefer oversoul. Other individuals will just say self, whatever you would like to say. And because our preference is essence, we will begin in this way. For physical dimensions, yours, like all others, have a certain number of groups of essences who will use this term in terms of time, originally had the idea for this particular type of a physical dimension. And so many of you here, probably all of you here, are familiar with concepts like the template level reality or the blueprint level reality. You may call it dream time if you wish. Within that, and even though in the moment, just to make it a little easier, we will call it a place. Actually, it is more accurately an action of consciousness. But in that place, dream time, we will say, you played, these individuals played with the concept of this physical dimension. And what that means, in part, is that they played with the way to configure your planet. Because your planet is the center of your physical dimension. You may say, well, this is a rather large universe. And we're in this place called the Milky Way, which is only out to the side of this universe and this galaxies. But realize that from this place, you create your galaxies. From this place, you create your universe, your expression of the universe. So within Dreamtime, these groupings of essences played with the idea of your planet. They utilized many permutations, many ways of expressing it until they came upon the form that's similar to what it is that you experience now. And then they expressed various types of life forms on it, things that you are familiar with to some degree, plants, animals. Not so much the type of expression that you are just yet. And then eventually, expressions like yourselves became part of that mix as well. At some point, many centuries ago, you chose to change the way that you expressed yourself on this planet. You chose to make your physical dimension, perhaps we can phrase it this way, much more physical seeming and much more solid within the idea that the flexibility that you once had as you expressed yourself on the planet to interact with those parts of you that we'll call in this moment non physical were no longer there with you. You little by little by little, we'll use the term, closed yourself off from them. And you began to utilize your consciousness in a way that all of you are still largely familiar with. And in doing that, certain aspects of your consciousness came to the forefront, primarily, especially in your 18 and 1900s, but before that as well, but very strongly then, your rational, your logical, and the intellectual ways that you utilized your consciousness as you manipulated yourself within your lives. And this was because your focus primarily was outward into the world. You looked out about you. You utilized your five senses very heavily, and you gathered information primarily, most of you, through those five senses. And you responded to the information that those senses brought you. Now, of course, in this new century, in this new millennium, you are altering all of that, as you're aware. In that, and leading into some things that we'll speak about in a short time, it becomes, in that context, increasingly important for you to use all of the various expressions that you could associate with your intuition and your intuition. Whether it's your intuition, whether it's impulses, whether it's impressions, whether it's inspiration, whether it's daydreaming, whether it's dreaming, whether it's meditating even to some degree, but not so much. Things that are a little bit more spontaneous, especially. We would say the more that you can pay attention to those things and the more that you act on the information that comes through those channels, all of it being information from the more encompassing you, the more you will move towards readiness, perhaps we will say, to the changes that you will be experiencing as your shifts moves forward. Even those of you who have been explorers for a while still largely view yourself as a singular individual. You are, of course, multidimensional. There are many, 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 many expressions of you. We mention this because as your shift, as your transition in consciousness moves forward in that regard, one of the things that you will notice is there will be increasing transparency to these other expressions of yourself. And it's not going to be like, oh, look at that person standing down the block over there. It will be, why is it that I have this strong emotion flowing through me right now? Why is it that these thoughts are moving through my mind that I can't seem to shake? Why is it that my body feels this particular way in this moment when in a moment previous to this, it didn't feel like that at all? And then they will expand from there. You'll begin to see parts of their lives and the things that they are doing. You will begin to know more and more of the other expressions that are you within physical dimensions, as well as the yous that move into the experience of you at various times during your day. You may find yourself, let's say, reading a book, very content with doing that, perhaps having planned several hours to sit and read that book. And all of a sudden, you have this very different surge in energy come through you. You put the book down, you call a friend, let's go out and do whatever it might happen to be. Ride bikes, go hiking, go dancing, whatever it might happen to be, something that's very different. Or perhaps you're making a meal, you're cooking your dinner. And as you finish your dinner, all of a sudden you feel like you don't want to eat that food at all, and you decide to order a pizza. All sorts of little things that pop in during the day. And when these occur, many times they are either influences from other aspects of yourself, they are other yous that are out expressing themselves in their own versions of this physical reality that then intersect with you in that moment, or they are used or perhaps connections that you have with other versions, not even versions of yourself, other expressions of either your larger self essence or other essences that come forward powerfully in that moment. And this is because the ideas that you've had of the singular expression of what you are have allowed you to have a particular type of an experience. But the change that you've all agreed upon, the whole of your collective, will lead to an experience that is very, very different than what you've been experiencing now. And in that, you can utilize some analogies that can maybe give you some hints about some of the things that you may be experiencing, only vaguely. Now, especially for those of you who are beyond 40 years of age, you are aware that you have a 5-year-old you that you were, an 8-year-old you, a 10-year-old you, a 13-year-old you, a 17-year-old you, a 22-year-old you, a 28-year-old you, and on and on. And you can, in your terms, think back at events that were occurring in your life, we will say, in those particular time periods. And so you're comfortable knowing that all of these expressions are a part of you. Now, of course, you may also be aware that those expressions don't actually exist in that way. There was no actual progression of one to an older version, to an older version, to an older version. You can use the metaphor if you like. It's like a timeline that is stretched infinitely in both directions. And from your position as the self, you can look at all of those versions of you. And you could say maybe hour by hour by hour or day by day by day. But they're all unique expressions of your energy. Now, in your experience, in your physical experience here, for many centuries, you have been unaware of these other versions of yourself. As you continue to thin the veils in your memory of who and what you are, and you begin to remember more and more of the actuality of your existence, these are part of the things that you will become familiar with. You'll become familiar with more of the versions of who you actually are. You are a conglomerate of expressions. And all those expressions come together in what you can call the essence of you, the oversoul of you, the encompassing self, the self of you. But from your perspective and from your experience, you will have the tendency to want to say that that larger you has an experience that is much like yours now, knows itself to be a singular you. But that is not the experience that you will have. You will have a very different experience. Embracing your intuition, embracing your impressions, embracing the impulses that come your way, acting on those, exploring your dream time to the greatest degree that you possibly can. Because within that action, within that place, we might call it, all of these interactions are interactions that you are aware of. Now you may bring a little bit of that back symbolically within a dream. But within that environment, you can learn within that environment to become aware of these other aspects of yourself, to become aware of the dynamics of the interactions that are going on with these other interactions of yourself. And then to utilize that to make this transition that all of you are going to make into those types of experiences more comfortable for you to do. Think in these terms as well. When individuals who are, within terms of linear time, advanced in age, begin to move towards the time when they will be leaving this experience behind them, many times they express what your medical sciences will call Alzheimer's or other things like this, where they no longer are so concerned with focusing themselves in this reality. Instead, they seem to be surrounded by a reality that everybody else believes occurred in the past. They may look at their son, who is now 65 years of age, and speak with him as if he is 6. This is something that is quite unsettling to most individuals because you see yourself in a particular way. You believe in the progression of time, in the progression of change, in the progression of age. What these individuals are doing, especially now in the last 26 years, is they are allowing themselves to interact with the simultaneity of time, of expressions. This is something all of you have the ability to do. You have just blocked it from yourself. In this time period, you are going to change all of that. And just as with these individuals, it can be upsetting to them, and it can be upsetting to the individuals around them, make no mistake. It can be upsetting to you as well. It may be upsetting to the people around you as well. The more that you can prepare yourself for those doors as they open, because they are going to open, the easier that transition will be for you. Paying attention to your dream time, paying attention, acting on your intuition, acting on your impressions, acting on your impulses, keeping your radar open to all these things as they pop into your life will make it incrementally easier when these things begin to show up in your life. All of you do have an advantage. Most individuals that are explorers in this way regardless really of how long you've done it, have connections with, and not that everybody doesn't have connections, but you have connections with, we'll call them this, those original groups of individuals that first conceived of this particular reality. They have always been in contact, and they always will be in contact with this reality. They are there. They guide you in many different ways. All of you will have leanings in various directions associated with different of these groups. And as you move forward in this shift, those leanings will become increasingly prominent. Some of you, of course, are already well aware of what your leanings are. And you've been acting on those for some time now. You've called these at various times fairies, sometimes dragons, gnomes, all type of mystical folk that many times you read in fairy tales. And some individuals who are inclined to metaphysical things seem to have a very easy time interacting with. This is the flavor of their exploration. Not everybody leans in that direction. Some lean in the direction of what you term extraterrestrials. Some lean in the direction of deep connections with the woods and nature. And there are others. But in your association with these groups, you have chosen to approach this planet and this time period a little differently than the individuals who are here, perhaps we'll call it in the moment, on vacation. In other words, just as you may go to a city in Europe, let's say, or another country that you don't live in, and visit for 2 or 3 weeks, perhaps a couple of months, and take in many sites, learn a little bit about the new country that you're in, the cities that are there, some of the culture and things of that nature, and then go back home. Many essences choose to do that here. Some individuals, however, when they visit a place like that, choose to stay and live. And this is similar to the experience that you all have, is that type of an experience. You interact a little differently with the experience than others do. Doesn't mean that others aren't going to go through the same shift. They will. It's just that your feelings in that regard, initially, early on, are a little different than most other individuals are. And of course, your numbers are quite large. Not as large as those individuals who aren't associated like that, because you can look around now and there are millions of you around the planet who are interested in this particular movement. Still many more that aren't really so interested, although things, of course, are changing. They're moving around the whole of your planet. So, in balancing your consciousness and balancing your expression of consciousness, most of you have already moved in this direction. All of you here have moved in this direction to pull yourself away from focusing intellectually, logically on your reality primarily and moving it towards at least the same amount of intuitional types of things. Now, as you move forward, of course, what will happen is that those intuitional parts will take a forefront, and that the information, the communication from those deeper parts of you will become increasingly prominent in your experience. But in that, what you will see is perhaps what we might call not necessarily a melding, but a particular give and take inequality of the parts of you that are focused within physical reality and the parts of you that are focused within the knowingness of the rest of who and what you are, and how you will express yourself then in that type of a collaboration. Much different than what your race has done for many centuries again. And so, again, the concept being that the more comfortable that you can become with those deeper parts of yourself showing up in your life in whatever way they want to, at whatever time they want to express with you anything they would like to express with you, and to have you interact with that in some way, in whatever way in the moment you're able to or feel comfortable with. And sometimes it might be just a little bit that you may have to ask of yourself, but not too much. The more you will prepare yourself, shall we say, to the doors that will be opening within you, not that they'll all open at the same time, but when they begin to open, and as they continue to do that, again, your experiences are going to be different than what your experiences have been in the past number of decades. In large part, as a result of you perceiving yourself as a singular individual. Now, this doesn't mean that you lose the sense of who you are. That does not occur. It does not also mean that as you move into that larger awareness, that somehow you lose your identity to that larger awareness. That also does not occur. There is no one aspect of all of consciousness that is superior or has a larger reach than any other aspect of all of consciousness, meaning you choose how you want to explore consciousness. If you want to explore consciousness from, perhaps we'll state it in the moment, an incredibly encompassing way, where you see and you experience the broad strokes of consciousness, you can do that. If you want to experience consciousness in a dimension where you are so tightly focused on your experience, you can't hardly recall any of the rest of what you are, you can do that as well, which is what you're doing now. Of course, you're moving out of that. All of this to say that all essence knows itself as all of consciousness, you included. What you will become familiar with is similar to the you that you are now, who knows itself as a more worldly you than you used to be at 15. You are still you, you're just much more familiar with many more things than what you once were. So in that, we will say that we've shared what it is that we would like to share in the moment. However, as always, if there's questions that you have, if there are things that you would like us to expand upon, or some clarity we could add on some things, please feel free.
Go ahead, Darla.
Oh, this has been happening with me for quite a while where I'll be doing something and something will just, I call it slide in. And I'm seeing myself, I'm doing something else. And um, it's maybe a slightly different version of what I'm doing in this dimension. It may be drastically different than what I'm doing at this time that this happened. But I wanted to ask you to say too. Um, what I've been noticing and um, is there can be triggers that do this, and I call them triggers because they get me to the, I guess, open up for something else. So I started writing down what what's happening when this happens. And I noticed that all of my senses play into that as well. I can touch something and it has a familiarity about it, and then I will expand on that in another dimension, or it brings me to something similar to that. I've noted music does it too. It's not like music that you hear and it takes you to a past thought, but which it can do, but it's usually a music, something that triggers me to slide into another dimension. And they are not long times of seeing into or experiencing this other dimension. They're usually fairly short, but they do give me the knowing of what was going on. Could you speak to that?
These are experiences that prior to you opening the doors to your shift, all of you, were experiences that happened to your awareness less frequently. You pass them by, but they are associated with just that word, associations that are going on with this version of you and other expressions of you, or connections you have with other expressions of essence that have got experiences that within their reality bear some symbolic similarity or some energetic similarity to something that you're participating in your moments. For instance, let's say that in one reality, you're in a store in the aisle where you are looking to buy a card for a friend. And a particular card stands out to you. It has perhaps a yellow flower on it. In another dimension, another expression of you, perhaps even on the planet, you are a painter. You're painting a landscape. And in that moment, you choose to paint a yellow flower. In another expression of you, you are shopping for fruit, perhaps. And you choose in that moment to pick up bananas and put them in your cart. Or there could be other things. So there are always connections, continually, actually, perpetually happening between you and the other versions of you, the other expressions of you, and other individuals that when you, before you chose to come into the dimension, and each night when you leave it, when you go back into dream time, all of you are again collaborating in a knowing way. And so there are many short term, sometimes longer term, we'll call them in the moment agreements that are made about collaborations that will be made, connections that will be made. And these things show up in your life. Now, it can be advantageous to pay attention to some of the things that trigger it for an individual, as long as at the same time you can allow it to occur in other ways as well. And you don't try to narrow it down to just those things. Because, of course, the more expansive you will pick the moment and the time to bring those things to you. Now, in this, as all of you move forward and have these experiences begin, if you don't already have them, and as they increase, be assured, however, you will remain the you that you by and large have known yourself to be. In other words, you won't find yourself, you may find yourself visiting these other versions of yous for whatever length of time, but as your years progress, that will become a more volitional thing. You will choose the type of experience that you want here. You will choose if you want to intersect with other versions of you like that, because you will know in the moment that there's advantage for you, something to add to your existence if you do that. Now it is not only that, and it is that, but it is also that tap on the shoulder. Those experiences that allow you to understand that there is more to you, more to your reality than what many people believe in this particular moment. So we would say that, and of course, we were aware that you were doing that. You have that in common with several other individuals here as well. Willow, in fact, had an experience today that was actually different than that. Very impactful, an experience where they had a connection with all of them for a short period of time that was very immediate, quite impactful for them. But the experiences then in your 70s and your 80s and your 90s, many individuals utilize many methods to attempt to bring into their life will be things that will, of their own, begin to show up for you in increasing rates. And so doing things rather that help to, in some ways, familiarize you with those various states of being, with those little hiccups in your experience of life, and being okay with them as they occur are all facilitative to that particular movement that you're all involved in.
That's awesome. I think it's just so wonderful that so many now are coming to do this and have a place to talk about those types of things. Some people couldn't start that discussion on their Facebook page or, other things. And I love that we have places and are providing places for people to truly connect with themselves and who they are.
You are you have created many, 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 many formats to do this within Now Around Your Planet. It was one of the drivers, unbeknownst to the intellectual, logical aspects of yourself, that drove your technology in the direction that it now appears in, so that you could connect in these ways with the ease that you connect. It reflects in part the ease in which all of you correct non physically as the soul, as essence, as the oversoul, as whatever term you would like to use.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. And you describing the things that you described and allowing people who aren't having those experiences listen to that brings an ease to their mind because they're familiar with you. They're familiar that you are an individual living a life in some fashion similar to theirs. And if you can have these experiences and appear unshaken by them, then when they start to show up in their life, they can do it a little bit more at ease than may have otherwise been the case. Thank you for that. Are there other questions or anything else that somebody would like to bring forward? Then again, we would wish all of you a pleasant and, of course, eventful and perhaps a little bit of a challenging experience in your next week or so. Because, of course, as you open to who and what you are, you're probably going to run into some challenges every now and then. So it won't be without challenges, but they won't be too large usually. But we wish you a great time, as enthusiastic as you can be about it. You find will be helpful. And if you can maintain that, regardless of what shows up in your life, you'll find that what it is that shows up for you as that does pop in is fuller for you than it would be otherwise. And with that, we will once again say good night.
Thank you.
And we've learned not to end the recording just yet, just in case somebody rolls some pearls out after that part of it is done. Mm.
I'm just chuckling through the whole thing because I'm just, shaking my head like one of those, doggies in the window.
Yes.
All of the things that you say, I've definitely experienced, and it's, it's on such a daily basis now that I don't even think it's odd anymore.
Yeah.
It's just.
Yeah, I know that Willow and I have been in those discussions too, where she goes, "Hey, so what kind of cool stuff happened, today at work?" And I said, I said I had all sorts of stuff that went on, but it's become so much of an everyday thing that I don't even commit it to memory any longer. It's just part of what my existence is now. If it's something really outstanding, sometimes what I'll do is I'll go, "Okay, I got to remember this, just so I have something to report when I get back." And sometimes I'll do that. But yeah, no, I know what you're talking about.
The magic is that we're aware of it, and that's
Yeah.
what's so amazing to me. Is I could just be standing there making dinner, and all of a sudden, like wham, I am definitely connected to something else, someone else, another part of me that's having an experience that I know I'm sharing right in that moment, and to be aware of that is really amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's those kinds of things have been happening so often. It's almost like it's not surprising, and it's not remarkable enough to like record in your diary, or and it used to be every little thing you'd record and want to
Yep.
share and talk about. But Wendy and I would be talking about a subject, and we would be watching YouTube, completely unrelated things to what we were talking about, and different topic YouTube things. And in each of those videos, they would mention something about what we were talking about, and
Yeah.
for no reason.
And it just
out
becomes
of the blue.
it becomes so obvious that you're like, okay, we really are making this all up. You say you can't make this shit up, and it's like, but you are, but you are.
Yeah, even
Yeah.
things. I think one example was like chocolate chip cookies. We were talking about cookies
Out of the blue.
now. And
Didn't look anything up about recipes.
No.
Nothing.
No.
And all of a sudden, it's everywhere we look is talking about cookies.
Yeah. Not a cooking channel or anything like that. Although what cooking channel made cookies too, but yeah, it's like of course we would
be
continually be seeing that thing that we were excited about, because that's how reality works. You're excited about a thing, you take an action, you're talking about it, and then it reflects back.
Yeah.
But the funny thing about that too is that the things that we feel like we want to manifest feel like they're so hard to do, Yet there we have how easy it actually is.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. Think
Yeah.
about it. And it
And
appears somewhere
yeah.
in your
What?
reality, somehow, somewhere,
Yep. Well,
some
and the whole
way.
thing is that it's not the concept, of course, is that you're continually manifesting the experiencing that you're having. It's not like, all of a sudden you
Right.
decide to bring this part in. You've been doing it all the time. So it's really incredibly easy, right? The whole idea is that to have a particular inner experience going on so that the way it shows up is in that regard a little bit more fulfilling for you feeling, but still allow for the surprising parts of it because it's always going to be that because of all the other connections that we have. um, and and I know that for me one of the places for me that is such a great testing place kind of is when I'm at work because I'm surrounded by, I don't know, sometimes 60 individuals. And if I get hurried or something like that, almost right away, the whole environment in a whole variety of ways starts to reflect that to me. And then as I catch it and I change it, I make it something different, it changes again very rapidly to become something different. Or whatever it is. I can see so much of what's going on and happening to me go on around me like right away. It's this incredible little experimental place. It's really, really
And
cool
then
like
those
that.
words come back to me always. You create your own reality.
Right. Yes. Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
and yet you think, all this shit that I'm creating, I don't want that. But it's like, well, then take a closer look.
Well, too, the whole thing is that, the all the various interactions that we have going on, and all the various ways that we help other expressions with energy, they help us with energy. We help to transfigure things, they help to transfigure things. Stuff that's going on, maybe we'll say behind the scenes, that's not so apparent to us yet. I think that as we move deeper into that, more and more of that will be apparent to us. And then we'll know what that challenge, all the various facets of what that one particular challenge was actually about. And it wasn't about just what we can like put our finger on here. There were other things that were part of it as well.
Absolutely. I'm,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, yeah, fun stuff. It's like I'm just enjoying the heck out of it. I'll tell you,
Well,
it's
sometimes
so
I'm
very
not.
cool. Well, I mean,
I'm like, why do I feel that way? That sucks.
yeah, right. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And even that, gives us an opportunity to kind of dig into why is it we feel like that in that
Hmm.
moment,
Oh,
you
why?
know?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's great, and I'm very grateful and appreciative that we have a group of people that understand these things enough to have conversations about them,
Yeah.
because that's new, really.
Yeah.
And for
And
us to
that's,
just think, talk about parallel realities and parallel selves and being interacting with them is something that we learned, you know, in our heads. We've been told this for a decade, but now we're living it. Like
yeah.
we are living it. We're in, and having conversations about it, and I think that's, pretty cool.
Yeah. Again, I'll go back to the workplace. It's like it's become relatively common for me now to go in and to have an experience where there's a guideline that I've been familiar with, has always been in place. That when I asked, and I don't do it just up front like this any longer. I'm much more cagey about it now because I've learned. Because I used to just ask, when did this change? And they'll go, Chuck, we've been doing it like this for months. And I'm like, what? And so I don't do it like that any longer. I like ask around very subtly, right? About like, okay, so and then I learn about it from various individuals. I don't just go like to, one of my other people in the office and go, hey, why are we doing it like this? That was me, but it's not like that because it happens a lot. It happens a lot. That environment changes all the time. Even almost everything changes almost all the time. But yeah, so yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's interesting because it just makes me think that there have been times where now that I'm aware over the last several years about creating your reality and being, you know, in different realities continuously, things would happen that seem to me very unusual. And before I react, I'm thinking, well, what reality am I in now? Is this a reality where, this person did something completely different yesterday, and now they're just responding to what they think was yesterday, and I'm noticing it, even though I know that they didn't do it. It, being aware of this and not getting upset and flustered over the changes between the realities that we're experiencing is pretty
Yeah.
interesting.
I've gotten very relaxed with everybody except for individuals like you. Um, and when I say relaxed, what I mean is that if I and somebody else had a common experience and they then express it in a particular way that's different than how I experienced it, I don't say, no, this is what I experienced. I'm fine with whatever version they experienced. With individuals like yourself, I can go, well, in my reality, this is the way I had it. This is the way it happened for me, because it doesn't have to be our way. We understand those dynamics. But for other people, I've gotten just really relaxed with just whatever way they saw it is all good. It's like, yeah, okay, that's all cool. No need to rock their boat.
No. You know,
Cool.
that scenario is very prevalent in the human world of the Sasquatch people. And because of the energy, the vibrations, and what that person already has decided that they are, there are so many things that are happening simultaneously between two, three, and more people that come away with a different experience. Basically, at the core, it's the same. But outside that core, there is differences in it. And that's one thing that, I haven't ever done to anyone is to tell them that they did not experience that because this is how I experienced it. I'll readily tell you this is what you experienced. You brought this experience to you. And because I didn't have that, doesn't mean that yours is wrong or that mine's wrong or right. It is just that experience each person has.
One of the things that all of you will do as you move further into this shift of yours is you will leave behind words and ideas like prove.
Mhm.
They will no longer have the meaning that you've held them to have for long periods of time because you will understand the validity of each person's experience of reality.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. With this proof, and especially within this human experience of being in the Sasquatch world, that was the very first thing I said to anyone after they had heard me say something and told me, you have to prove this, and I always said, I don't have to prove anything because I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm going to share my experiences and I'm not going to ask you to believe me either. And that would just, people would go, well, how can you say that? If you're up here talking about them, how can you say you're not trying to prove it? Well, I'm not. I'm sharing my experiences. You can believe them or not believe them. You're not going to hurt my feelings if you say that's not what you've experienced or that's not, what you believe. And when we get to that point where we understand for ourselves, that proof means nothing
Absolutely.
in anyone else's life as far as your life is concerned. I'm not trying to prove to anyone that I exist as well.
Right.
You know, I've had some people say some strange things about me, but I'm okay with that because it's what they see. And it is not for me to tell them, no, that's not who I am at all, because that's what you see, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah. And what a lot of people don't understand is the powerful way that what it is that they believe affects their perception, which is the mechanism that creates our reality. Because if you got an individual who just does not believe in whatever experiences you're having, there is no way really to prove it to them because they're not going to see the proof anyway. They won't hear it. Whatever the sense they need to utilize is not going to bring that into their experience because their beliefs will not allow that. Well, guys, as always, lots of great stuff to chat about at the end. So, guys, go forth and have a blast, like I know you're already doing. Yeah. And again, if anybody feels like chatting us up about, whatever experiences they're have had, if they get a little tickle someplace about, something that they want to share, then yeah, hit us up on the page, the Facebook page for the group, and we'll set you up with a weekend, a Saturday. And in any event, the Satu's on a roll now. So if there's no one else, then I know they got stuff they want to talk about, and they're going to be pushing the bubble out a little bit. So yeah. Anyhow, okay, guys, have a great night, everybody. We will see you next time around.
Good night,
Bye bye.
everyone.
Take care. Hello and bye, Heidi. Good to see you.
Night.
Hello.